Okay, hi everybody. I'm here with Sabrina Wallace, and we are going to talk about the biofield. And so, welcome, Sabrina. It's great to finally meet you. Like I said, lots of people have been asking for this conversation. They want to get our insights on the biofield and how it's relevant to the world right now. So, for people who aren't familiar with your work, can you just tell us a little bit about your area of study, area of interest, what you've been thinking about, working on, formulating, understanding, all that.
Well, I've known that the biofield is anatomical all my life. I started teaching my friends when I was actually in the seventh grade. But back then, there wasn't any National Institute of Health reference. I worked with nurses primarily, and I got my first level A healing touch certificate at a nunnery in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Um, I was taught therapeutic touch first and then healing touch. I always knew how to use my biofield because it's part of your body. It's like saying, I always knew how to use my hands, I realized that a lot of other folks, or maybe not a lot, I hope not a lot. I hope there's more folks now that go, oh, that's what that is. Because the big inspiration was high school. My friends having different things happen, going, and I said, you don't need to be afraid. It's just part of your body. And they went, that's what that is. I opened a healing office with a breathwork coach who actually went and attended Heartwood. And then that was for a very short time. And then, life happens. And I was working as a network engineer for an ISP, Charter Communications, internet service provider, and then more life. But in 2019, I went to the post office and they told us as a homeowner, you're in the 6G. And I went, what? And so as a networking engineer, I knew where to look, but it took me a bit to understand what I was looking at was really old. That was difficult for me personally. But
Wait, what do you mean by old, very old? Can you elaborate on that?
sure. The because when I was younger, I was talking about it. I was asking questions, and everybody just pretended like if you can't see it, Sabrina, it doesn't exist. And so as I got into body sensor networks, body area networks, wireless sensor networks, that's all electrical or magnetic communication, not just with the skin, under the skin, period. Pacemakers go back to the 1950s, for example, but people have an easier time with that because they go, well, yeah, I put a pacemaker. It's like a little embeddable in my body. That part makes sense. But when I tell them your body emits biophotons naturally, your body is electrical naturally, and they listen to that vibration of your heartbeat or your pulse. And that's your biofield. Those, when I read it out from the NIH today, they explain that the biofields, plural, and I only do quotations because there's several of them. That's the electricity of your heart, EEG of your brain. That's what they used to call the aura. That brought me to like Dr. Becker's work from the 60s with that same IEEE, which is your International Industrial Electrical Engineers, electrical and electronics engineers. And that's when I realized this was in hospitals. This was the sensor systems. They were ubiquitous for very simple things like theft in a store, basic surveillance radar with cameras and more than your ring camera. And so, as a computer networking person, it made total sense to me. Assisted living goes back to 1999 with the medical implant communication system. And so, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it in 2019. And I started asking people, hey, why aren't we talking about this? Because according to what I'm reading, this is our new healthcare, which means we can talk about it again. We can actually communicate. It's right there. It's on the NIH. Woohoo. I was not prepared for the other side of why. This anatomy was buried in 1910 with the Flexner report and then pops back up again in 2015. So it's a very long time that they've known. One other thing I want to say quick for anybody who's interested, galvanic skin response and muscle response through the skin, that goes back to the 1700s and it's in textbooks. I'm not saying like they wrote a note in the margin. Oh, no, no, no. When they first tested the telephone, Alexander Graham Bell, they were testing with photonics, visible light communication. Most people don't even know what that is. So we generate biophotons through more than just our bone marrow, and that's still all the biofield. So that's what I've been working on. I've been trying to help folks come out of the darkness of boogada boogada for whatever reason and embrace their own skin, which is your somatoform. I had to bring in a lot of neuroscience too. So that's basically it. I've always been very interested in crystal healing and vibration, resonance. I love music. I love to sing. And that's all part of our health. It's all part of our natural immune system. So to me, it's a lot of fun. But to some folks, especially now with the last 5 years of things, it can be very frightening. And I acknowledge that often, and I advise people, do not be afraid. Believe in yourself. Believe that you are capable, because you are. It's your own anatomy, like your hands.
Mhm. Yeah, that's definitely when I first started doing research for my master's thesis back in 2010, I was sort of astonished at the lack of information on the biofield and on how sound affects us. Like and the fact that that we, that we have plasma bodies, that plasma was hidden, that this whole electric aspect of our bodies and our life and the environment had been completely hidden. And
Mhm.
I was very surprised about how Robert O. Becker's work wasn't really picked up and carried forward. And traced it back. Obviously, the Flexner report. I'm always telling people that in the early 1900s, you could buy devices for your electric health from the Sears and Roebuck catalog. Like there was
Yes.
such an understanding and fascination of the body as electric, and then that was all buried and put underground. And the way that people have been disconnected from their own electric nature and the electric nature of the environment is almost like a spell. It's like people don't get it. They just cannot seem to cross that gap into this understanding and recognition. And because so much of it has been programmed into us as pseudoscience, like the aura is nonsense and all the things that are capable in an electrically connected environment are described as pseudoscientific nonsense. But another thing, Sabrina, that has given me a lot of, I don't know if caution is the right word, but what I observed of these electrical researchers like Robert O. Becker or Valerie Hunt or there's another woman too whose name I can't think of right now, Elizabeth Rauscher, who was doing, are you familiar with Elizabeth Rauscher and her work?
I am.
Yeah, and I met her in person, actually went to her house, and she told us a story about how the men in black showed up one day because she was uncovering how the man-made electromagnetic frequencies had a non-beneficial impact on our own electromagnetic self. And so I've been very careful in my choice of words when I talk about the biofield and avoid referencing what is going on out there as nefarious or negative or dangerous to us. And I really work hard myself and to share with others how to make your own biofield strong and sovereign and stay in integrity. So I would imagine that's something that you practice as well. And I'm wondering if you have any practices or thoughts or beliefs or things that you hold to keep your own biofield sovereign, if you will.
Well, when it comes to practices, breath work, prayer, singing, my form of meditation is with the help of my yoga swing and my cats. These stretches and joy. Um, infrasound. A lot of the metrics of the biosignals they pull are your own blood flow, your own heartbeat, pressure, which you can change by your breath. Also, I keep a lot of crystals nearby. I enjoy my stones and their resonance, kind of feng shui. I have healer bowls like my brass bowls and such. And the number one thing is for me is that joy in the face of adversity is an act of rebellion. When you start talking about this topic, the attention of what we call the Freds, rather than anything else, is intense because this is an engineered system. Even the men in black, they're not magical. They use haptic gear, they use equipment that we now call bioelectronics. So, my practice is to steer clear of that, are pretty much, I stay as natural as I can. That's why I mentioned the crystallography and the breath work and exercise, the basics, along with some fasting. But dietary choices, like you mentioned, being cautious about what you say. In my world, I'm very cautious about anything that is medical or, um, like take this supplement or use this vagal nerve wearable. I try to stay away from that. I will give the information and be very clear that it is a personal decision and that people should always look into it, consult with others they trust that are professional. Um, but that's a huge chunk of protecting me, and my home and my four-leggeds, etc. But the biggest component that I've run into there, as far as strengthening the biofield, has been sound. And sound is on the technical side, is one of the strongest areas they hit first. As far as, and when I say hit, I don't mean target and fire. I mean metrics. It's a hop sequence of they look here, I'll say look, they look here, then they look here, then they combine that information. So if you are already paying attention, that's been the biggest, like you said, it's really difficult for people to understand that it's your parietal lobe, your back here, your somatoform, which is your homunculus, where your nerves are responding. And that when you can work with your biofield and be in that place, like you mentioned, of integrity, it's your cerebral spinal fluid, it's natural, but you got to be there all the time. And people can barely acknowledge it without dealing with like a lot of bullying from other people because they don't understand, or other things. But I like to think on the neutral side, which is they don't know any better or they don't understand. That way there's a possibility for education there and communication. But people have to work with it. They have to figure out, do I like brass bowls? Can I use my tuning forks? How do I manage through the day while you're still taking care of what you need to? And being able to pay attention without feeling like you're always under attack could just be as simple as wavelengths that are coming and going. So I try to help folks heart fire up, is what I tell them. You need that strongest electromagnetic field at the heart. And when you cranial breathing, essential oils, that's another place I really, really enjoy helping folks explore, because they are often surprised how quickly you can help pain relief by the cranial breathing with things like peppermint oil or frankincense. Got to try different things. It depends on you. Um, but that's what's most important to me, is actual physiological effects that help people buffer in between their daily living. And then heart fire up, because things are always going to be around you that are not in your control. I call that life.
Yeah, I think that the natural part is really key. Uh,
Mhm.
that the more substances that we expose ourselves to that are unnatural, unnatural food, unnatural scents, just things that aren't in energetic integrity and in resonance with nature, are all destabilizing to our own field. So I'm a big advocate of what I call the small farm diet. of eating
Mhm.
whole foods from nearby, because that will give you the greatest amount of strength and resiliency in your electrical system. And and obviously I'm right on board with you with the sound piece, because I've spent almost 30 years now exploring how the sound from tuning forks reminds our body of its own integrity, and that the importance of staying in that integrity structurally, emotionally, intellectually, uh, energetically, in the way that we relate with other people, so that as long as we maintain a strong coherent signal, and that we are continually having touch points to that sense of connectivity to that which is bigger than ourselves, the nature that's bigger than ourselves, then that will be the signal that we tune into. That will be the signal that informs us, as opposed to putting ourselves filled with all kinds of pollutants that degrade our integrity and then make us vulnerable to outside non-beneficial vibrational influences.
Diet, I agree with you completely, is very, very important. And did you say small farm diet?
Yeah.
We have quail here at home, and we sell our quail eggs at our local health food store that has extra, like I said, essential oils and things like that. Your diet and your microbiome, the enteric nervous system, it's a huge chunk of how your hormones, your endocrine system, all of it works together. And that's your phasia. And I know you know all this, but I also advocate for a clean diet, as simple and as free of excess materials, as you said, as possible.
Mhm.
The the very the challenge, to put it nicely, is that nanotheranostics, nanopharmaceuticals, and nanotechnology, they have put it in the water, the soil, the air, the food. And they didn't start doing that yesterday. We're looking at 30 years of that, and nano.gov, 25 years. Um, and so I it's the cleansing, like I mentioned, I don't advocate for any sort of specific protocol or process. I just advocate for you, whoever you are, to advocate for yourself, in that you know what's best for you. And as you said, staying in attenuation with your own cerebral spinal fluid, your own vibration, and with that heart fire of your actual physical heart. It's the middle of, whether you call them chakras, meridians, or whatever you want to call it. It's where your veins and arteries cross, your internal organs. So, as you said, you staying coherent, that mind heart coherence, along with your gut microbiome. That's enteric, parasympathetic, and your primary central nervous system. And it's that awareness that allows, in also, in my opinion, that you can live life in the moment, which is what we're supposed to do anyways. But as we all know, what are you going to do tomorrow? Oh my gosh, what happened yesterday? Versus, hey, what's going on today? I appreciate you, thank you. We do a lot of gratitude work on the channel as well. When people do a drive by and they only see clips of me that other people post, they miss all the other work that I do. Apologies, that's my incense. um, I I advocate for, there's that word again, but it's sticking up for ourselves, because this anatomy was hidden. Those of us who stand firm and say, no, I can work with it, let's work together. I'm hopeful that it becomes easier now, as those of us on the channel, and I say we're all part of the band. There are many wonderful people that have also said it's time to talk about this, because you hid the anatomy. You as in the doctors, you as in the nurses, you as in the government, you as in these companies for the new healthcare. So since you're already making money off of it, since it is our new healthcare, it's just anatomical. That means anybody can talk about it, and hopefully it's exploratory instead of frightening. Um, but the most important component is that integrity you spoke of, staying in attenuation, heart, mind, gut coherence.
Yeah. And you know what else sort of comes to mind as you were speaking is that also our energetic alignment with our own vibe tribe, if you will, that we are stronger together. And just like our own biofields are non-local, we do have the ability to connect to other people who are on this wavelength and draw nourishment from that. And I think that that is a big part of what has been cleaved, that we have been cleaved energetically apart by the denial of the energy that connects. I know that whenever I go to a like an in-person event like Confluence and I'm around people who think like I do, who have the same values, who are committed to this integrity that we're talking about, that I am so nourished by knowing that there are other people who are tuned into the same wavelength, and that we are kind of all tuned into that together, and that we're not alone. And I think so many people who are interested in what we're talking about often feel at odds with their local communities. That that so many
Yes.
people have sort of taken the story hook, line, and sinker that this is pseudoscientific nonsense, and that there's this automatic dismissal that happens very often when people start to talk about or explore this level of our anatomy. Like you said, I mean, like it's like your hands. It's just it's there, it's real, it's been described and known about for millennia, and it was intentionally buried. It was very, very, very intentionally buried and hidden from us, so that I think, it seems to me, based on what I've heard you say, based on what I've observed, so that we could be hacked through the back door of it because we don't even know that it exists. And we don't have an awareness of the importance of keeping our electromagnetic membranes in strength and integrity.
What I liken it to is that if I said, "Hey, Eileen, we're going to go run a marathon. It's a 10-mile marathon we're going to run tomorrow morning." You would say, "Hey, I need some time to warm up for that or train for that." Um, so there's also that hurdle for some. They don't feel it, or they have a hard time with piloerection. Um,
Wait, what's that?
Piloerection is when you harness your own bioelectricity and you make your hair stand on end. But that's your pluripotent stem cells as well. And it moves through your lymphatic and your fascia. Now, you can use music, but that's a different response. It doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It's just a way to help your body get reconnected to your somatoform. But then when you can do piloerection just by yourself in your sunlight, you don't need to stimulate anything. You just take a breath in and you're like, I feel groovy. I feel great. Today's going to be an amazing day. And then all your hair starts standing on end. That's you. And I always make the joke, hey, y'all, you save 30 grand on a stem cell treatment just to, because again, people are, as you said, they feel alone or they feel isolated because of that instant auto response of that's silly, there's nothing there, etc. Well, actually, it's a very powerful component of the nervous system, and it's 80% by mean, median, and mode of the organs that comprise all those biofields in biofield physiology. That's your skin, the interstitium. I have a little picture I show all the time to help folks understand that your body is incredible. The best quantum system is between your ears. When you can connect with your own bioelectricity, be gentle with yourself. They hit it. Okay, take it back. And when you do, be nice to you because you're not going to jump up and run 10 miles tomorrow morning, but one step at a time. And how it fits within your own day could make a huge difference. I've received a lot of love from so many people worldwide, actually, which was very humbling for me because my endeavor was just to say it's anatomical, it's cognitive neuroscience. No, really. And that way people were less. In the first year I was online, I was hopeful that would be enough. They'd be like, hey, it's okay. So until we ran into the Fred side of things, because these are jobs. And a lot of the experience I had was that anytime I spoke of the biofield, meditation, I did a lot of healing, a lot of land healing. But when it came to self-defense, there wasn't much. And then when it came to, hey, this is my body, I said no. That's where I really found the line was blurring because there was a lot of Fred involvement. And instead of being afraid of it, I set boundaries as well, like what you asked me about, how do you keep coherence and, move through the day? I'm not, because I refuse to be afraid. It's my body, it's my life, it's my home. And just like anything else, I'm going to do all I can to protect myself. So, those two components, how you move through your day, don't be afraid, and find natural ways to enjoy living your life with all of your anatomy. You don't have to leave anything out anymore. And I also talk about, I just released my empathy PDF, empathy, telepathy, precognition. That's cognitive neuroscience. No maybes, it is. Now you can go buy for 10 years Synchron. Neuralink is antiquated, it's very old, but Synchron and other embeddables, injectables, graphene tattoos, and it provides brain to brain interface. That is synthetic telepathy on sale on the eBay for 10 years, 5 years really on the eBay. But what I've worked to explain to folks with something they can get their hands on, their minds around with topical terminology is that they didn't give you telepathy. They're using your own neurons for the telepathy. That's what led me to the real reason they buried this body part and the systems, because they're under the skin for 30 years. So you purchase the ability to use your own neurons from a company and they route the data. That bothered me deeply about a year and a half ago. So I'm working on that, the telepathy workbook, because I don't want to step on anybody's proprietary software and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, striking the urgency needed for humanity. Hey, they're already under the skin because everybody literally pretended it wasn't anatomical. Now we're in trouble, in my opinion. And that's because, as much as I know I'm okay and that I know how to deal with certain environmental things, other people have no clue. And they call that our new drone warfare. And then our Secretary of Defense is out there telling people, we're going to protect you. This was just last week. And all I asked was, okay, how? And it shouldn't be a fight. And there shouldn't be people arguing one another or insulting people. It should be education because it's the same anatomy. And between the, we're going to sell you, literally, you have to pay money to use your own bioelectricity and neurons. It's cognitive neuroscience used by NATO, 100%. There it is in, it's all written out that way because it's cognitive neuroscience. But you yourself, if you want to use your own telepathy, empathy, precognition, you're going to run into this system because the system is not something that someone sits down at a computer and, like, what a lot of people thought, they focus on you, etc. The system is the living plasma of our atmosphere. And this is another place where here's the part of the recording Eileen might go, oh, I'm not so sure, maybe. Apologies, ma'am. But I grew up with nature spirits and all the different types of energy by vibration, because math is universal, so is vibration. And for me, it was just natural. Well, what they copied was molecular communication. That's how the bees signal the flowers. It's how our cells signal one another. So the natural plasma that your eyeballs don't see is just not how your brain is physically set up, but your body hears and sees it all. That's a component as well of bringing the anxiety and fear level down so that people can feel, hey, that might feel weird, but it's not a signal, or that might feel weird, but it's kind of familiar. It's the way I think we've always harmonized with the biosphere. Our plasma states of our cells, that's plasma states of cells, the river, the forest, but without knowing that, people are bullied and in the past. And so if we can find a way to build that bridge of communication, like you mentioned about your vibe tribe, I think there's a lot of folks out there from all different types of jobs, walks of life. They're ready because there's no awakening without all of our anatomy. I really, truly believe that with all my heart.
It's making my, I can't remember what the word is, but my hair is standing up. Yeah, I agree. And I think that the idea that the atmosphere is a plasma is also really lost on people. They're like, no, wait,
Mhm.
it's air. Like, it's actually got charge. I've been asserting for a number of years now that when I activate one of my tuning forks, that this sound is electromagnetic.
Mhm.
And that sound has longitudinal, transverse, scalar, and electromagnetic properties. And this is very hard for people to wrap their head around because they've been so programmed to think about molecules bumping around in air that they just can't grasp the electric nature of this connectivity.
Oscillation as well. We all know sound with oscillation, but your neurons oscillate in the states of the cells. Sorry, the voltage, the ion channels, it's oscillation. I try to use a lot of visualization to help people with that part, but the beauty of sound healing you can really see with the magnetic effect when the biofield changes those different frequencies, and then you just see it clear and become coherent. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
really, really, when it comes to tuning forks, I just want to say the ones where it has the one stick on the bottom and you hit the top and it's like a U and it goes down. Those are so divine. If you have fibromyalgia, deep muscle issues, I do. I've had nerve issues all my life. I have to be careful as far as I'm very sensitive. I love those. They go right through and they just move all the way down in the same wave you just spoke of. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been so intrigued by tuning forks. I still am. Next year it'll be 30 years that I've been using them, and I never get bored with them. I never get tired of them. They're always showing me something new. The way that they reveal the vibrational language that's happening in the body.
Mhm.
I just did a remote session with a woman before I got on with you, and she said, "You must be psychic because you've nailed like every single thing that's going on in my mind." And I said, "Psychicness has nothing to do with it. This is a language." And I've been exposed to this language for so long that I completely understand it. That this is the way that patterns and vibrations are moving through your body's electrical system. And every
Yep.
waveform has a correlation to a state of mind, to a feeling, to a kind of memory, to a certain input, to a certain dysfunction that has started to go. It's all very technical and it's all very repeatable. And the system is designed to be in harmony and coherence. Like that is how
Yes.
we were made. And that is what the system is always trying to get back to. And so when we use pure sound, whether it's bowls or whether it's forks or gongs or what have you, voice, then we support the body in remembering its fundamental integrity and fundamental connection to the cosmos, to the environment, to the earth, and to each other, right? And so
Yes.
underneath all of the noise of the craziness of this world, there is a fundamental harmony. Like that to me is the ground state of being, and that everything else is just noise in the signal. And the more noise we have in our signal, the more vulnerable we become to the all the noise in the external signal. So again, just having our own signal be really clear is super important. But I'm curious what you think of wearables like the Oura rings or any of the things that we can wear that are electronic that read our own signal. What do you think about those kinds of devices?
As always, there are different stages of healing. Like if you just had a surgery, you need to monitor something, a TENS unit. But the wearables like the Aura Ring, etc., this is where the folks with grounding and the Schumann don't understand how the bodies are connected, which is to disrupt your electrical homeostasis. That beautiful oscillation you were just referring to, the natural molecular communication, where the lady said, "You must be psychic," and your response was, "No, no psychic. It's a language of vibration." They call it molecular communication, and like you said, it's repeatable. It's a language. They disconnect the Schumann. They disconnect your biofield. All this stuff about when I say stuff, I mean a lot of people, they said, "Oh no, Mother Nature's bigger, nobody could ever do this." That's the danger zone area. Yes, they can, and they do, or else your wearable wouldn't work either. And people don't quite understand that either. They think that, again, everybody's just, oh, just put it on and no big thing. No, it alters your bioelectricity to the terahertz bandwidth. And I don't want to get too technical because I don't want to lose anybody. But all this, it's quantum and healing wands. I caught a lot of fire for that because I said that's their system. And it's just like anything else with when you have your body codependent on a drug, or, and hey, again, sometimes you need that, different scenarios. Okay. But anytime you teach your body in order to function, you need to have help, like the vagal stimulators, the Sensate wearable. I need this for my anxiety because I cannot just breathe and do it by myself. That's okay for a while until it's not there in an important moment. And again, this is where it's very personal. People have to figure out, how can I build this muscle? Because it's like it's anatomical, so that you can do it on your own without needing those things. Um, but that disconnection of the ground, and that's where, again, I don't advocate for use of AI of any kind. I know that, again, is a personal decision, but that has to do with the photonic networks that they're using. It's just, I prefer to be more natural, and it's easier then. If anything around me is off, I can go back to my natural signal quicker because there's not all that stuff inside of my body, like we talked about clean eating. But with the wearables, they are attenuated to even more networks that are right there, like the Wi-Fi. And then it's magnetic, it's heavy. So that's why I caution. But as we know, people going out into the world, getting a job, being in all these smart buildings, etc. Some people have built apps with the wearables to specifically block certain frequencies and algorithms, things like that, to try to be helpful. But that only goes so far. The equipment that is in use by the security types, including keeping buildings safe and hospitals or an arena, like if you go to a concert, that there's override there that is not available to people who make commercial products. So you just have to be mindful. And also, again, that dependence. When it comes to communication, that's different. It could be for work, it could be for school. But if it comes to, I need this for my anxiety, that for me personally, I give a pause because I just don't want folks to be caught in a place where they can't pick it up and have it help them.
Yeah, I personally am not a fan of those things at all. The fact is, I was working on a client once and she was wearing a Fitbit and I was like, okay, well, you need to take that off. And I'd never held one before. And so she handed it to me and it had this blinking green light on it. And I was like, oh my God, you can't wear this. So, like, this is going to completely mess with your own signaling. You have so many meridians that go through your wrist. And this is just like flashing and chaotic and incoherent. I had to put it in the closet. Like, I couldn't even leave it sitting on the table. I was like, we're putting this far away. So I think anybody who's wearing any of these thinking that they're improving their health, and like you said, they can be training wheels, it can be a short-term thing. But to me, all of these electronic devices are false idols in a way because our own minds are so powerful. Like there's people trying to make biofield sensing devices, which I think is great. Let's show that it's there. But there is no better biofield sensing apparatus than the
And
human body.
yes,
You don't need all of these things. I mean, I have people that buy these $30,000 machines. I'm like, I can do everything that that's doing with an $85 tuning fork because none of that is necessary. So, I think that we have been trained to give our power away and then have it be sold back to us. And that our
absolutely.
own human minds and our ability to regulate ourselves is where we should be going. Like to me, the tuning
Yes,
forks have really been training wheels that have shown me the power of my own mind. And I think that if somebody is serious about getting vibrationally and electrically healthy, it is better to go down the road of training your mind rather than trying to find devices to do it for you, because there is no device out there that is superior to a human body and spirit and mind.
That's right. Namaste, amen, scald, wee for everybody. I want to say one thing there too. In addition to what you mentioned, when training your own mind, as like I said, so that you're never there's nothing better than you, anyways. But the endeavor of hiding human anatomy from other humans, why would you do that? So that you are in between them and their own skin, and that is what this is. And when the wearable goes on, there they are again. That was another reason why I said, I don't need your help and I don't want anything. Machine, uh, metamaterial, human, AI. I don't want anything between me and my own skin. I thought that was universal. No, and it's because of, in my opinion, the social engineering of giving our power away. Well, I know what's wrong with me and I know what I need. Extra vitamin C, frankincense breathing, or hey, I really need something a little extra. Now, we're not talking about breaking your leg where you can see the bone sticking out, needing emergency care. I'm talking about daily care. You know, we're not allowed to do that. You, as for as long as I've been alive, it's always, well, who told you that? Well, what do you mean, who told me that? I know what I feel. I'm swollen, or I need some more water or a zinc, a little more mineral in my world. um, that quickly went away and you were called crazy, a quack. And then if you didn't have noticed in the last 10 years, if you didn't have more than just one doctor, a primary care plus a specialist and all these things, that really bothered me because it just got worse and worse. And then with AI, of course, well, the AI said so. What about you? What do you say? What do you feel? How's it working for you?
Yeah, this idea that we can be our own health authority is so foreign to people. I'm always
Mhm.
amazed when somebody says something to me like, "My doctor put me on this." Like,
Mhm.
like I'm just going to such cognitive dissonance because I've learned to be self-referencing, and because we are connected to the all, it's all one water, the water that's in you, it's all one plasma, that the knowing of what is needed is right there. It's right at hand. So if I'm slightly off in some way, I'll just ask. I will ask the plasma, I'll ask the ether, I will ask my own body, what do I need right now? And it always drops in. It just drops right in. Like I was on my way to the health food store one day, and I was felt like, something, my system was starting to break down. I'd been under a lot of stress and had been busy, and I was like, oh, I'm feeling a little and so I just asked. I was like, what do I need? And it came very clearly to me that I needed medicinal mushrooms because my cilia forms connections in places, and when we're under stress, those connections break down, things start to gap and not fire properly, and then the body's like, bleh. And so the spirit of the mushrooms just came, and you're like, you need us, and I was like, okay. And so, I found a nice medicinal mushroom thing. I took it for a few days, and I could feel just like when you take psychedelic mushrooms, it forms neural connections in your brain, and you
Mhm.
see things differently than you have. Medicinal mushrooms do the same thing. They just improve all the pathways of communication and flow, right? So
Mycelial,
yeah,
yes.
mycelial, exactly. Or, and I personally don't really like, maybe in the winter I'll take a tiny bit of vitamin D, but for the most part, I don't take any supplements at all. And people are always kind of surprised about that. I don't eat really vegetables and I don't take supplements. And they're like, well, Eileen, how can you be so healthy at 56 when you don't take any supplements? And, because I feed my electric body.
Mhm.
I've learned that health starts in the biofield. And so all the things that you were saying, singing, music, sound, sunlight, hugs are a big part of it. And that the more that we start to feed our electrical body, even like the mushroom thing, the way it creates these pathways, just eating mushrooms helps with that, then our physical health is downstream of our electric health, basically.
I just wanted to mention the lion's mane at our health food store. I was in a similar disposition. I'm also with you with the lack of supplements. I'm 46, and that's why I don't say much because I'm like, I sing, I breathe. I tried lion's mane, just like you mentioned, with I always explain it as the mycelial networks in the soil of the forest. Everything is communicating. But what I wanted to say about what you mentioned about asking, how do I feel? What do I need? I taught my children, 11 and 12. I said, when you take your left hand, I teach right hand down, left hand up for connection and polarity between body to body in my basic intro classes. I said, okay, put your left hand out, put it over top of the food you think you want. Don't touch it. Leave a little space. Just stick your left hand out, kind of like reflexology. And they're like, I said, close your eyes. Mom, close your eyes. Okay. They still do it to this day because it never fails. That's your body. And you're sometimes the eyeballs lie. Oh, I want that cheeseburger. You want those blueberries with yogurt. And it's not always that simple. Sometimes it is the cheeseburger. It depends on what you've been physically doing, right? To take it out of your cells, etc. And you're like, oh, got to put it back. That's all it is. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And that's why I was laughing. I just wanted you to know I wasn't laughing, I was just giggling, going, yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Because I always tell folks, nobody knows better for you than you. You don't need me. You need you. You're the expert on you.
You are.
Nobody is better at knowing everything you've been through, where you're at right now. And my issue with the agency is, like you mentioned, well, my doctor put me on this or whatever. They don't live with you. They're not there to be there every second to know. They don't ask you the right questions to know. They take what you say, they give you their best assessment, and then you implement that in your world, and you're the only one that has to deal with all the repercussions of that decision. That's why I put a very firm foot down that this is my anatomy, just like anything else. Hey, Sabrina, this is the situation. It involves your lungs, your kidneys, or whatever it might be. I'm the one that has to deal with that, not that person telling me anything or ChatGPT or whatever. So that's why it's so important to recognize how powerful your immune system already is. Just got to be there. Groovy tunes, stem cells, like you said, reach out and feel the world around you by the vibratory language it actually uses, because so do you. So that's really cool. I'm going into the health
Awesome.
food store going, what do I need? Because
Yeah.
my children still do it too. Yeah.
Yeah, I taught my kids when they were, I think, 9 and 12 or 8 and 11. They learned how
Yep.
to douse with dowsing rods. They learned how to muscle
Oh,
test. They learned
you
biofield
mean the
tuning.
push down too?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. In fact, I even did a thing with my son, and this was years ago now, but I came home on a Friday afternoon and it had been a really long, busy week, and my son was learning bartending at the time, and he had a bunch of alcohol bottles. I don't really drink alcohol very much, but he had an interest in it vocationally, and I said to him, I feel like I need a drink, which is something that I almost never do. And so I was like, why don't you muscle test me for all the bottles on the counter and let's see what it is I need. And so he did. And what came up was brandy of all things. And I sat down and I had a little glass of brandy and it just absolutely did the trick. It like, warmed me, settled me. One glass was plenty. And we were like, we could come up with a whole bar thing where we muscle test
Yeah.
people. I'm like, what alcohol is medicinal for you right now? Because it was just, I never would have been like, oh, I need a shot of brandy medicinally, but that was, that it worked. So it's good to teach them young to understand these things because if we don't, this is what I think is really the most important thing right now is our own sovereignty, our own agency, our own
Mhm.
connection to nature and to spirit. And like you said, AI is such a slippery slope that is consuming people very quickly. Like I started
Very
using
quickly.
ChatGPT back in I don't know March, and realized pretty quickly that it was sort of like cocaine. That I was blowing my own mind. I was like staying up till midnight, and I was like all of these things, and I was like and it really like it was addictive, and it
Mhm.
was draining. And at the end of the day, it took a couple of months of me sort of ODing on it before I was like, this is a drug And this is something that isn't like, even though it is scratching my intellectual nature and my love of connecting dots and deeply explaining things, the juice isn't worth the squeeze for my own brain, my own body, what it was doing to me. And so I'm like, okay, enough of that. But I do see, some teachers out there who are very enamored of their AI. And I just, at least for me, and obviously for you, and probably for many people with us, it is not the spiritual, what, there's all term for it, like false spirituality, or the spirituality invitation that people are like the worm on the hook, that people are just kind of going hook, line, and sinker. And it is further giving away agency, power, and connection to the one where all of this information already lives and is downloadable by our own hardware.
I was just going to say the harmonics that are natural aren't getting through when you're using AI. That's not a maybe. It's a topological fact of how the digital twin system works. It's this is what bothers me the most. Like I mentioned with the telepathy, you're paying to use your own neurons. I have a problem with that because it's been socially engineered for so long that it's woo woo and it's all spiritual. And I'm sitting here going, get out from under my skin. I don't want any system overlaying my neurons while I'm typing. That is how it works. That's why MIT's recent studies that people went, oh, yeah, you got less intelligent using AI because cognitive neuroscience didn't change. Neurons that fire together wire together. You're not using yours. The AI is telling your neurons how to wire. No, me, inside of me, I want to do that for me by pen or by sword. I don't need a computer and I have a working memory. That's because I exercise my neurons. One of the funny things, because I had a stroke in 2011, and when I had to heal back from that, I did a lot of study on cranial nerves. And I tell folks on the channel because sometimes they will say, Sabrina, when I'm listening to you, I have to always go get the dictionary. And I don't apologize for it anymore. At first, I did a little because I wasn't trying to confuse people. It's just me. But they said the longer they listened, neurogenesis, the more they used their hand, write it down, draw the picture, they remembered it. And then I would use sound, sosa and mosa. And they'd be like, oh, that ain't a fruity drink. Those are sensors. And this is oscillatory learning, I found out later on, but it's how we used to pass things down with oratory with shamans. It's how the herbalists used to tell each other things without writing it down for all sorts of different reasons through history. And I pull people through history too sometimes, just to remind folks you're human. And there's nothing wrong with being human. They're convinced there's everything wrong with being human. But that's because they hid all of our neurons and our ability to problem solve, to heal, to work with one another without a telephone. They took it away. They didn't take away the abilities, they took the whole of the anatomy and then filled our atmosphere and us with metals to make it even easier to suppress our neurons, to get between our skin and us. There's no benevolence there. So when I see what you described with people that they're using it for healing and they want to be human 2.0, I take umbrage with that because as humans, I'm 46 years old. We haven't even been allowed to talk about what we can do naturally. It's kind of like when, if you're like, wow, I feel really tired, I'm going to go take some medication and an injection. I mean, I would hope by now people would say, don't you just want to try to take a nap? you know, it's, I mean, really, because everybody's going, put your wearable on. And I'm going, whoa, 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 hey, whoa, yoo-hoo. That's really where we are. And we can communicate as best we can, but it's important to remember that other people out there with this whole transhumanism, human 2.0, they really believe they're saving the world and the species by controlling everything down to the molecular level. And people say to me, well, no, Sabrina, they're just, selfish or et cetera, et cetera. And I shake my head because I don't agree with that. I think there are people out there that genuinely believe that this is the only way to save anybody, to change any problems. Um, but the reality, the physiological reality, is that you took the biofield and hid it around 1910. 2015, it pops back up on the NIH. Where's the conversation? Where's the, hey, let's get together and figure out how to communicate? Like in my classes, you know, one on one communication, learning to disconnect, clear your field, move to the next person, self attenuate first, then connect, then let people talk, go to the next person, clear again, as a way of helping people because you're always out in the world. But that biofield to biofield concurrence, they interrupt that too. And that's where, for me, even with my animals, I don't want anything between me and my animals. I don't want anything between me and my beloved. I just want to be a human, having the human experience. The window may be small, Eileen, for us to genuinely communicate to other folks that is the physiological way of being, because AI exponentiates and, social engineering and different things, but it's worth it. Every free range human out there that has an opportunity to at least choose. Hey, you know what? I don't want to work with that anatomy. I've lived without it this long, whatever, put my wearable on. Or, like you said, the vibe tribe, that's sticking in my head. In our community, heart fire up, free range humans. We sing together. We're all part of the band, and we read to our children out loud. We write things down. I'm working on my coloring book set for all this technical data to make it a little easier, and um, making an energy ball with children. They can feel it very easily, especially when they sing. And then changing the color of the energy ball, it's very simple. And they, as far as between an adult child, the two of you, the child changes the color, you do, you write it on a piece of paper, list to 10, and then compare when you're done. People get so excited. They're like, "Oh, that's like magic." And I'm like, it's like molecular vibration.
I mean, it's what we're built for, right? And
Yes.
we have all of these senses above and beyond what we're told. If we don't have a word for something, if we haven't been taught it, then how can we grasp it, right? I
Right.
mean, when I first started working on my master's thesis, I was looking in PubMed uh, for words like aura and human energy field and not finding anything. And I remember thinking, like, what on earth am I doing trying to write an academic treatise on what is an esoteric topic? And that was 2010. And then I discovered the word biofield, right, which was actually coined either in 1992 or 1994 by the National Institute of Health. So, it has been around for a while, but super buried and still very buried. Like most people don't get it at all. And, or if they do, then they've just been really programmed to be dismissive. I found that people have been very programmed to be dismissive of tuning forks, which I find really interesting. It's almost like people have
What?
like this subconscious, yeah, well, and it comes from different places, right? For example, some Christian denominations have been taught that tuning forks are of the devil. And so whenever someone said that to me, I'm like, oh no, that's pitchforks. Like that's three prongs. This only has two. Um, but even mainstream people, like there is something about a tuning fork that sets off what I call people's woo bells. So people have been programmed subconsciously to look at these simple tools that can really actually help bring us back to this agency that we're talking about. Like I've tried many, many, many different approaches, as I'm sure you have as well. And to me, nothing works faster, more efficiently, more easily than pure acoustic sound to just
Yeah.
bring our own rhythms and cell to cell communication like into coherence, into alignment, into a sense of inner unity. And I think that that's really key, is this sense of personal wholeness because we've been fractured by trauma, by lies, by misinformation, and we don't have access to our own wholeness, which is where our power lives. And pure sound is the simplest, most direct route into that coherence of your own inner symphony where power and health and resiliency all live.
I'm sorry I laughed. I got to tell you something funny though. One of the first times I heard your name was my healer friend Manya, who does distance healing naturally. She wanted one of those machines. I was going to get it for her. And I said, "You don't need it anyways." And she's like, "Oh, Sabrina, they don't believe me." And I said, "What is all that?" And she opened up this big tuning fork thing and she goes, "Ah, those are my forks. I got a client coming in a little bit." They were construction workers. And they come in and they go, "Hi, Manya, etc." And he says, "Oh, I don't need any of that woo-woo stuff, but you give me them forks." And I said, "You got to be kidding me." So, anyways, she goes and does the sessions. I'm staying at her house. She comes back out. I said, "What was that all about?" And she goes, "Oh, those are the construction workers. They only want the forks because they work every time in about 20 minutes and they don't have to take any pills. Then they can go back to the job site and finish the job." And I said, "Where'd you get them from?" And she's like, "Oh, the, pardon me if I say your name wrong, the McKusick lady." And I said, "Who?" And she goes, then she showed me the other ones with the tone. And I went, "Oh, those are super cool. And they were great." And she said, "Yeah, that's what the construction workers say every time." And I don't know many churches that didn't have a bell.
The bell thing. I mean, I became completely obsessed with old world architecture and the sort of Tartarian narrative back in 2018 and have really literally been obsessed for 7 years, contemplating the bells, meditating and like to listen to the bells in the ether. This whole idea that the bells that were everywhere, these brass bells, were really like bathing villages in tune-ups freaking every day
Mhm.
and keeping the evil spirits away, keeping that which preys on organisms that are no longer viable, right? Like nature seeks to reintegrate unviable organisms, and whether demons or external forms exist or whether they're just part of our own minds that have split off, I don't really know. If they're part of our own minds that have split off, when we talk about people having demons, like his demons, they are like literally your demons because they are fractured parts of self that aren't integrated and are, need love, basically, like anything that,
Incoherent fractals
yeah.
by vibration.
Yeah,
Yes.
incoherent fractals, it's a great way to put it. And that if you're constantly bathed in coherent sound, it introduces this wholeness that we were
Yes.
talking about. And in a world of divide and conquer and cleaving and separating out everything, of course you wouldn't want the bells creating coherence and unity in people and in communities. And my tuning forks, especially this one, I'm just going to ring it. I don't have my good mics on, so it's going to sound a little funky, but my 222 is very much like a bell. And just by sitting with this fork, like this is like a meditation fork. You just sit and all automatically all the water in your body, everything starts ringing together, right?
Yes.
So that's introducing that wholeness. So if we don't have access to the bells that were such a key part of human community,
Human community. Yep.
then we have to like bell ourselves so that we are getting that to keep us whole, to keep us from going into the incoherent fractalization of self. Yeah.
And it's magnetic, which helps us stay in that coherence with our flowing, our blood flow, our cerebral spinal fluid flow, fascia. Fascia is always flowing too. It may be crystalline in some formats, but everything within your body is always in flow.
Yeah. Yeah. I was
That's why
just
the sound is so helpful, also, in
so
my opinion.
totally is that flow. I was watching a podcast with my friend Brooke, who has a podcast called Musical Breathwork, or Gamma Seekers is what it is. And she was talking with a guy who's been studying cerebrospinal fluid. And And he said, it's all the same stuff inside. It's just congealed in different ways. But the fascia and the fluid is all the same stuff. It's just
Yep.
taken on different expressions of architecture within ourselves.
Yes. Yep. 100%.
Yeah, and how we want to keep all of that, like flow, integrity and flow, right, are
Yes.
absolutely key
Yep.
to functionality, and coherence. And if we can
For
achieve,
architecture of the
yeah,
body or architecture of the buildings. Yes.
yeah, exactly. And if we can keep all of that, those things in order, keep ourselves whole and in flow, then I feel like we can navigate this sort of hostile electromagnetic environment more fluidly, more successfully, and retain that agency and sovereignty that I think everybody's looking for, but doesn't quite know how to get there.
Yeah. 100. Yes. 100%. I agree with you that it's that agency, the coherence, the sovereignty, the ability to take action because you are within yourself, grounded to you. And that magnetism of your, what I call heart fire, which is your biofield concurrence with those you love, wherever two or more are gathered, regardless of what you do or don't believe in, wherever two people are magnetizing together and able to bring up that beautiful harmony of life. That's how you make a family. Again, regardless of how many of you are there in your environment, and your environment is there to heal you and be with you. So why not have some of the most beautiful, incredible abilities and tools all around? If they
Mhm.
knew it was there, Eileen, I think you're right. It's that we've just been without it for so long that everybody goes, "Ah, blah, blah, blah." And then now in this new world that we are navigating, this is the moment that we can take that anatomy back and heal our fractal awareness, be in harmony with our biosphere, groovy tunes, and able to heal ourselves and others. Well, that's really what we need, anyways. So I hope that with more folks learning and having access to like your tuning forks, which I learned about from construction workers who swear by it,
Love that.
then we have more options. And then Chris, his knowledge of sound, music, and graphics enable in the ability or his ability to translate for folks to help them open up a little bit, be a little more brave, trust themselves, and also heal up. I have I'll say that differently. I have so many teachers on my channel, and I encourage them always to be creative, work with their environment, and don't be afraid of what they come up with. You never know. It could be someone's answer they've been looking for a long time. Just be honest, authentic, and don't be afraid to be wrong. It might not work for you, but it might work for someone you're close to. You never know until you try.
Mhm. Absolutely. What's Chris's podcast? And can you just say a little bit about him? Because Chris connected Sabrina and I, and so honor him in making that bridge.
Well, the first time I saw him, he's the 6x7 podcast. He was talking to a street doctor, I think pardon me, I forget the name, but it was a doctor, but he was very kind, asking the right questions, but he was confused. And Chris comes from IT and networking like I do. And he's like, well, break it down like this. This is how it works. So it was another communication bridge between what the doctor was seeing, what he knew a little bit of, but he didn't know about Dr. Becker yet. And then what Chris was seeing in the electrical and the networking. So then I communicated with him because he sings, he's funny, he makes music, and I'm very lighthearted and I sing. And we had the greatest conversation though, because he has a degree in is either electrical engineering or computer science something. So the vocabulary that I'll just start spouting off, he understood, and then we were able to communicate a few different ways to explain how the infrasound, the sound under the skin that they use to create cavitation, close ion channels, interrupt the ground, that's something that he was able to translate a little bit. So his podcast is sometimes him talking, just kind of driving and communicating. But he's been working very hard in the background, I know, on trying to help people understand this easier. And I'm really looking forward to that project when it comes forward. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, he is a wonderful character, and I can see how he would be an incredible bridge for this. In our culture, I hate to say this, but we've been conditioned to listen to men and to honor men maybe more so than women. And so it's nice that he has such an approachable way of communicating. I think especially for the men in the audience to hear and to understand.
Apologies, kitten. Yes, we are conditioned to listen to men, especially in STEM. It's just numbers, in my opinion. There's so many more men in the technical, and I'm an engineer, so we're just kind of used to it. But he does a great job, and his empathy, tremendous empathy. He's always looking at things and thinking about how to bring it to life and make it topical to enjoy the moment. And he brings that into his work. So I'm hopeful with that type of communication. I'm so sorry.
That's all right, kitten.
Okay.
Okay, well, so enjoy. I think that has really become my mantra. I was in a podcast recently, and I was telling the woman about how, and I follow the pleasure path, that I seek to enjoy every moment. And I got little treats throughout my day that I like to have, and that really, to me, the end game of healing is the freedom to enjoy your moments, because our days are made up of mostly mundane moments with all the basic things that we have to do. And we've been so conditioned with this, with FOMO, or with this, that, or the other, that we should be different, guilt, shame, inner critic, that we don't grant ourselves the freedom to enjoy the very basic things: your coffee, a meal, music on
Mhm.
the drive to work, interactions that you have with people that you care about. All the little things that we can suck the marrow out of the ordinary, or we can be sort of continually discontent and casting about. But what I've found is that the difference in me between when I had a lot of noise in my signal and when I was very fractured, my own magnetic field was full of incoherent fractals, that coming into wholeness, coming into groundedness, coming into all of what we've been talking about has liberated me to enjoy the moment. And that it's that
Yes.
simple. Like if there's more to it than that, I'm not sure what it is.
Self-care is really important. When you mentioned putting treats throughout your day, I encourage our folks to respect that self-care, appreciate yourself. What I said earlier, be gentle with yourself, and then celebrate. Look at you. Look how brave you are. Look what you're trying to do, and you accomplished it too. Hold up, let's have a moment. Things like that, just to help folks, like you said, appreciate themselves, take care of themselves better. When we do that in our daily world, you also, what is within surrounds. And then like just now, I am in gratitude. I have a brand new kitten. I didn't think that was going to happen for a while. It did. And even though I wasn't mad, I was a little embarrassed. I'm like, oh no, I forgot to tuck that wire because that's what he was going after. But even then, it's appreciation. He's here, your kindness. Thank you for your patience. And someday when I look back on it, I'm going to laugh. you know this is the joy in the now. I took a class with love coach Scott Katamas, and what the first thing we learned when we came to the retreat, it was about empathy first. And he used the example of being late as a student to your professor, but when you get there, the student that was before you needed help and you ended up sitting and waiting for 20 minutes anyways. And he gave several examples, and he said, when you're in the moment, you can appreciate and be grateful for the time you have right now. Tomorrow is not a guarantor, but today is a gift. And that stuck with me, that rather than being, instantly, like you mentioned, we picked up a lot of habits of sucking the marrow. I like that, out of the ordinary, but that is our world. And my joy in the face of adversity is an act of rebellion. I remind folks often, because instead of being in anger or fear in regards to frustration of, oh, this didn't happen or this is coming or whatever, I'm here now. What can I do now? What can I learn? What can I physically do and apply? And like you said, when you have self care, self reflection, and celebrate, like, hey, look what I did today, truly. But coming from the chronic pain community, that was a lesson that I had to embrace early on. Um, Chronic pain meaning recovery from stroke, surgery, whatever it might be, that you have to do that for yourself. No one can do that for you. But I got to tell you, once you hit your stride, once you heal it, a car accident, and then you heal back from whatever the injury is, oh man, life is brand new and it's all different. But I know that you don't have to have a major accident. You can wake up right tomorrow, you can do it right now today and be like, yeah, that's what I did today. And it was great, if I might say so myself. And now I'm gonna have some coffee.
I think I'm gonna really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I know you and I could just keep going on. But what I would like to do is invite viewers, like after you've watched this conversation, send me questions because Sabrina, I'd love to reconnect at some point down the road, and maybe answer some specific questions that people might have about biofield health, how we navigate this environment, what that looks like. So, if people want to learn more about you or connect with you, where do you always send them?
Synergy on the Rumble or the Odyssey platforms.
Okay. So, PSI.
PSINERGY.
Okay.
And it's, yeah, Synergy.
Nice. That's cool. I like that play on words. Yeah. I know you have lots of great videos and lots to learn and share. So, thanks
I
so
just
much.
want to say thank you, Eileen, to you specifically on behalf of those construction workers. It's a very real thing. I was excited to tell you that. The way that it came into our conversation is a blessing.
Yeah.
But your tuning forks and your instruction have changed lives. That's how I knew of you before Chris got a hold of me. And I'm like, that lady? Oh, definitely. Because these are people, they didn't believe in the woo. They didn't want the woo. They wanted what worked. And that was your forks with your instruction. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for your boldness and your courage and giving so many these tools. It doesn't it doesn't take a lot. It takes an open heart and I would say a love of music. And a lot of people love music or vibration.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think it also requires caring, like I care about my human family, my brothers and sisters. I know that like every moment when someone is suffering when they don't need to be matters, and
Yes.
that really gets me. I'm like, oh, so it really does come from a place of genuine care. And I'm very grateful that I was given, the gift of figuring out biofield tuning because it came through me. And I never came up with the idea. I'm like, I'm going to use tuning forks and map the bio. I didn't no idea what was happening. I just kind of let myself be led, and it led to this. And so knowing that, regular guys out there are getting relief from this approach, it means a lot. So thank you. All
You're
right.
most
Well, we
welcome.
will definitely reconnect at some point for you guys who've been watching. Thanks so much. And please do send me questions. And the next time Sabrina and I connect, we can answer some of them for you. All right.
Sounds good.